Hello, everyone, and welcome to the office hours here on the ViaMonstra Academy. Today, we have a very, very special guest joining us. It's Danny from Microsoft, and he'll be also around talking about these technologies that we love to work with. And pretty sure I will bombard him with a question or three throughout the session myself. So that's the fun part. But I'll introduce you to that in just a second. And that being said, we are ready to get the questions coming in. All right, we are back. As usual, it's me and Andrew holding the fort on the ViaMonstra side. And as I mentioned earlier, we have Danny with us today as well from Microsoft. Can you say a few words about who you are, Danny, and what you do for a living?
My name is Guillory. I'm a senior program manager here at Microsoft, and I work on MIM, both CM and Intune. Been doing this for quite a while, 99. I don't know, everything device management I like to think of as things I specialize in.
Well, that's cool. We had a first comment, of course, is Mr. Troy Martin. He recently joined here. Apparently, 49ers is not his team, but that's what it's like to go live. Always fun
Yeah.
stuff. So, Danny, I know that you are doing a lot of events and things related to everything in the MEM sort of ecosystem. What have you been up to lately? Sort of what are your things that you're doing?
Um, so trying to get features out to customers that'll help them uh, be more excited about using the cloud, help them use the cloud more. I talk to a lot of customers, and they all want to get to cloud, especially after they have the privacy conversations, all the conversations they have in the beginning. But how do we go to the cloud? How do we get there without increasing risk? Is kind of one of the things that I like to talk about and really focus on, because being them before, everything is focused around risk. Doing cool stuff is great. How much of that cool stuff is going to increase risks? Things cause harm to the business or unknowns to the business. So when I'm talking to customers, I'm really tied into those type of things, because consuming the cloud is one thing. Consuming the cloud with command and control and minimal risk seems to be the sweet spot. It's what I used to really focus on as I was on the other side for 20 years before I came here.
That's awesome. I mean, it's quite interesting, both the folks that we have here attending our various courses, but also the folks who work on and engage at from the consulting side. More or less every single organization we talk to these days, they are somewhere in the cloud journey. Some are very, very far, like all in, and some are like halfway, and some are just starting the journey. But everybody seems to be somewhere on that scale, moving workload after workload and whatnot. And it's good to see. I mean, obviously, I'm probably the elderly geek in the in the studio at the moment, but celebrating 30 years imaging, and I think it'll be around for a few more at least. But it's nice to see that there is a shift happening, and it's happened fairly quickly. Uh, Intune, for example, 5 years ago, I mean, it's 11 years old, but it's Intune 5 years ago is not what we have today. It's been such a rapid development just the last few years. It's
Mm-hmm.
pretty incredible to see, and also to see the adoption.
Yep.
Or anything you'd like to add, Mr. Andrew?
No, I'm experiencing the same things that you're talking about. Slowly starting to see everybody get on those journeys. Even if you're doing something like adding a CMG to your config manager environment, or starting to do some co-management with config manager. It's really cool to see that path happening for so many people right now.
All right. So we had a question coming in. It's from Akos on YouTube. He is using Jason Sandy's UI++ and had some question around that one. And for those of you who are new to that part, let me get the screen up here and I can show you. So Jason recently changed his old ConfigMgr for the win to mmforthewin.com, of course. Have to follow the trends here. But in this tool solution, this is where you have UI++, which is a quite well-known front end that you add to ConfigMgr. You can control which pages that are supposed to show and select applications and whatnot in it. And the question is more like, the user wanted to prevent to start the sequence itself when someone stops the UI in the boot image. I have not tried that configuration. What I do know you can do is you can launch it as a pre-start command and basically have multiple commands in that and somehow trap and stop the sequence that way, possibly. But it's not something I have tested, unfortunately. Anything from you, Andrew or Danny, on that part?
Not from me. I haven't looked at that in years. Driving more of the cloud attached stuff and code manage CMG stuff. I haven't seen this in years.
Yeah, it's funny. I've seen people starting to go back to use some of these older front ends, but they trying to figure out how they can use that as part of the autopilot process, for example. I've seen people using the PowerShell app deployment kits, so they will get a nice little progress bar when the apps are installing in the enrollment status pages. So apparently you can mix and match some of the old school techniques with the new school, so to speak. But unfortunately, I don't have any additional insight on that one. Jason is a busy gentleman. He is, but reach out to him on Twitter, and he usually replies. And I think he still has the Jason Sandys handle.
Yeah, Jason's pretty responsive. He'll definitely, if you hit him up on Twitter or his email or his socials, he'll definitely reach back out.
See if we can get his handle out here. That is still just Jason Sandys, so that's easy enough. So this is the gentleman. For those who haven't met him, he's extremely tall as well. But he's been the author behind this tool set since I don't know when. So, all right, excellent. Any other questions? When did you join Microsoft? It was like 2 years ago? Year and a half?
Yeah, a few years ago.
Yeah.
Probably 2 years now.
Yeah.
2.5, maybe 3. I don't know. Time passes fast. I've been here for 8, and I just start seeing people pop up like, "Oh, hey, what's up?"
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, Danny, are you going to the W3 Ninja Summit this fall? Are you heading over, or are you staying holding your ground here in the US?
No plans. I'm going to stay here. I got a few trips coming up, work trips, to go talk about some of our other features, things we're working on. More just really focus on trying to help customers move. I've been championing the whole cloud attached code management stuff for a year and a half, 2 years. Feels like forever. So focusing on that stuff, like what's going to get customers more value as they start consuming the cloud. A lot of tenant attached stuff, code management stuff, CMG stuff, value from just being enabled. One of the things I like to try to help customers understand is the difference between tenant attached code management, how easy an entry, low bar of entry one is versus the other. Enablement should be zero risk, no risk. I mean, you could have scenarios where there are risks, but pure enablement itself should just be zero risk. Get some value, see what's there, poke around, kind of put your feet in the water, see if this is what I like. How do I operationalize it? Basically, just enable it to see what's there and if it makes sense for you to peel an onion.
All right. So if in addition to the security reasoning you mentioned earlier, what would say you'd be like that the most common questions you get from customers embarking on this journey?
I made a lot of customers on different ends of the spectrum. I think the most interesting customers are the ones that are in the middle of the journey that ran into a roadblock. I find them questioning, hey, should I have gone a different route? And we have a show coming up about this a little bit later. Kind of like I think of it as old Roger Rabbit cartoon, like which way did he go, Doc? Right? Say, which way do I go down this path, and how do I go down? I have a method to the madness on how I talk to customers about it and view it. And then my method is more of what would I do if I was back as IT director or an admin again? What would I look at? How would I address certain situations? You know, how do I go from A to B with the least amount of pain? So some things I try to ask customers, like, you got to figure out if customers are willing to rethink, and where they're not willing to rethink, they wind up on those traditional things that we used to do all the time. But the rethinking comes not by singularity; it comes by group effort. A lot of the traditional IT was very siloed, right? Your device admins didn't talk to your identity people didn't talk to security, and it was all kind of everybody running their own thing. When you start looking at modern, I find it hard when customers come to me and talk to me about where they're at, because the moment I get involved, it's like, hey, are you talking to your team next to you? Like, well, they're not next to me. They're 3 states away. Well, you guys probably need to start talking to each other. The modernization doesn't work individually in individual team base. It has to be driven together. It's usually where I see a lot of success, and where customers really break what I would call a glass ceiling. When I meet customers that are stuck, they're trying to figure out, how do I do this thing the way I used to do it? And classic Microsoft, right? I guess, one of the things I say is I drink the Kool-Aid, I don't shower in it, because I was on the other side so long. It's more of reversing the question is, should you still do it that way? And it's okay if the answer is yes, we're going to continue to do it that way. But the knee-jerk into trying to use a new tool with old practices, I would say it's just the wrong way to go forward, or at least step into it. If you're going to use a new tool, think about what you would do if you didn't have the weight you have now, or the things you have now. Would you create it in a new light? Would it be easier, more efficient, easier to operationalize and put into play? And then you have to kind of also bring in I have this now, how do I get from here to there? And then that's how you kind of meet in the middle. But working together is how it's all done, because it's very hard to drive individually one thing in a group anymore. If you don't work with security, they'll come bop you on the head, say, hey, well, we want this, and we want to connect here, or we want signals from different tools. And that's where the success comes in, because when you put it all together and work together, I used to call these just big whiteboarding sessions, and it's not a one person or one team, each representative from each team, because you can step through the process of modern together rather than separately. Hopefully that makes sense. I just gave you a bunch of doors to break into jail there.
Perfect. I just put up on the screen here, we do have, and I know you are involved in this, but there are some very shiny upcoming events now in just a week or so. 4 hours of total content. Yeah, 4 hours. And I mean, sign up and take this opportunity to ask the folks questions on all these different categories, everything from Autopilot to Endpoint and ConfigMgr and everything in between. So good stuff there. If you haven't seen this one, sign up. Anything like you add there, Danny, on these events?
No, I mean, they're all really good events. I'll say, and nothing more than what you did. Great events. Definitely go take advantage of them. Things I wish I would have done when I was on the other side. I was so inundated, and it's probably the same way. You're so inundated in the day-to-day. Find some time to pick your head up and learn, because learning is going to make it more efficient. Though the time you pick your head up, the time you don't stare at that fire you got at the office, this learning should provide efficiencies and value and things that you can make better in your environment. Try to go home at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That was my motivating factor.
Works. All right. So we have a question coming in on YouTube that is from Alpine, having a question: is there an official way to disable or block Windows 11 updates? And no, I do not want to take this survey right now. I'll do it later, I promise. Promise. But there are two policies that you configure to make sure that clients are not being offered Windows 11 as an update. I know that some folks have received it anyway. What we learned over the years is that you may have to set some additional registry keys if those policies doesn't apply the way they should. I know you, Andrew, had stumbled across a few interesting scenarios when you guys were moving over from using ConfigMgr for patches up to using Intune or Windows Update for Business through Intune as your primary source of updates. I can see if I can locate that tweet, because there was a gentleman that summarized it pretty well. Normally, you just configure the target policy, the Windows 10, and the version you wanted to offer updates for, and that should effectively block those offerings of Windows 11. Let's see here if I can find it.
Yeah, and you'll run into like the situation we ran into that you were mentioning, where registry keys wouldn't set the way that they're supposed to automatically set when you move into co-management, or you could possibly have corrupt group policies on some of these clients that you may not realize. We ran into that. Those two issues were pretty big.
Yeah. Anything from your end there, Danny, on folks not being offered Windows 11 even though they set it up not to be?
No, I would defer that question to Aria. Aria is our Windows Update queen, as I call it. Amazing Windows Update. So Aria Updated on Twitter is the person I would ping about that one. She'll be able to give you a definitive answer. Normally does.
Yeah, we have showcased her profile here many times because we do these questions a lot. And yes, as you said, she owns the Windows Update area there, so it's good stuff. I was trying to find that one. Not very successful, I'm afraid. Here we go.
So I guess, Andrew, I have a question for you. Y'all asked me, I'll ask you guys. What do y'all find? What's the most common question for you guys when customers are on that cloud journey? Like, is there a common area they're stuck, not stuck, or related to getting towards the cloud, more into the cloud?
I mean, we usually come in from very much from the technical side of things, helping out, implementing and troubleshooting. So most of those questions are in those areas. All right, what tools are available for troubleshooting? How can I learn to do that more effectively, and where do we even start? And also just learning all these different platforms, because there is a lot of new stuff coming in. Just if you never worked with Autopilot or even hybrid join or similar scenarios, there's a lot of moving pieces. It's like, it's not as complicated as ConfigMgr maybe if you're new to ConfigMgr, but still there is a lot to it. I find that tweet I was looking for before, some organization that had troubles with getting them down from the policy or group policy. They possibly didn't have the latest DMX templates updated because there are missing some in the latest Windows 10 one that are in the Windows 11 ones. And this gentleman recommended to simply set the keys directly, and that should help preventing you from receiving those offerings.
Mm-hmm.
So
When you got customers that are using these traditional pieces as they consume other pieces of modern, is it usually an education gap or an operational gap?
I think it can be both, honestly. I come out of higher ed and speak with a lot of higher ed colleagues and that sort of thing, where we have many different IT teams that are anywhere from central IT that they eat, breathe, and sleep this kind of stuff, but you've got somebody that was maybe doing accounting for a specific department that got wrapped into managing 10 devices, 10, 15 years ago. So there you could have a little bit, definitely of a training gap. Operationally, I think there's a lot to be said about what you said, Danny. Some of your common questions are people in the middle of the journey where you may do something like, Johan, we've talked to people about using the CMG to run a task sequence over the internet and still enroll devices into co-management and that sort of thing. And there are times where you're going down that path where you go, should I just be doing autopilot? Should I just be doing full autopilot and Intune? The answer is not always so clear cut, but there's a reason that you're seeing that a lot, I think, because we have so many different tools, and there are scenarios where I think, and Johan, you'd probably agree that there are scenarios that you do want to do an over the internet task sequence using the CMG. But it can be very hard to figure out if that's really the right way to do it, right? Or if it's the way that you should be doing it. And that's where you run into some of those gaps, I think. I don't know if that totally answers your question, but
it does. I mean, it's some of the friction that we see, and I run into, like, again, because I'm used to doing it this way. This is what I want to do, even with this new tool.
Right.
So when we poke and peel that onion with customers, it can be frustrating because what we really want to do is help customers have a better future operationally, efficiently as they go forward. And some of those old things, they create tax you don't see till later. I think that's kind of the easiest way to put it, right? It's like the things that you're doing now, you did them to achieve X goal, but because you put that in place, now you have 3 other steps before you can get to said goal.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have those conversations, at least my perspective, when I'm having a conversation with customers, it's not necessarily put them through a frustration type aspect where, hey, we don't want to change. It's more of us trying to understand, at least me trying to understand really why the resistance to that change, and not necessarily but the resistance, but the second part is always more important, is what's that impact. When you have to rethink certain things, what's the resistance as well as what's the impact? Because then we can internalize that and figure out other ways that make this easier or a no-brainer, or even minimize risk, or even add more value. So really just kind of different angles, different signals. So helping clarify those things with customers and really get into specifics, tangibles, that helps us rethink a lot of how we want to do stuff. Me especially because I still am an IT pro. I still think like an IT pro. It's kind of hard to rip all that 20 years away. So when you look at stuff, it's like I know half the answers that the customer's going to say. So I usually get cemented in some of the thoughts and processes, and then you talk about them internally, and then you get this different lens, and you got to come back and ask the question. But it's enlightening. And sometimes those conversations completely change. I would say it's rare, but some of them those conversations completely change because there's something new in the industry or something. But it does answer the question.
Oh, beautiful. So in the meantime, well, you guys were chatting along a little bit. We did get as an answer from the community to the other question regarding UI++ that came on earlier, and this is what I love about these.
Good job, community.
It's fantastic. While we were, someone else had an idea, been doing this, and came up with an answer. So this is the answer to the earlier question regarding the UI++. How do you effectively stop the sequence if they abort the console or the front end? So good stuff there. And Nail, yes, indeed, you are a hero, as mentioned here in the chat. Community does rocks. I'm gonna steal that one also. Totally true. And this is something I love so much about Intune and ConfigMgr and all these related technologies. The community has always been so amazingly strong for decades about these platforms. I mean, even before Intune, the ConfigMgr community was very strong, but this is amazing. Just the amount of information that's available everywhere these days. It's good stuff.
Sure. I could say I wouldn't be here without the community, and a lot of other people wouldn't be wherever they are without the community, because it's one of the things I have been super excited about. Like, I've dealt with other products, but the device management community has just been enormous and really helpful across the board.
Yeah, indeed. All right, let's see if I can get these screens to align somewhat where I want them. Here we go. All right, any other questions? We are three geeks, happy to answer any questions you might have on anything MDT, ConfigMgr, Intune, PowerShell, probably a bit of Azure infrastructure. We might not have seen everything, but we've been in the game for a while and we've seen a lot. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate.
I'm trying to think what else I can talk about. A new feature that we released quite recently was Autopilot in the co-management. So that was something we released to help customers get more into co-management being born from Intune on Autopilot. So through Autopilot, we can now install the SCCM agent and move workloads accordingly. So if you ever had trouble with that using the Win32 app, however you wrapped it, or the MSI, so now you got another supported way to actually get into co-management and then get some value. That's pretty interesting. If you haven't tried that out, I'd definitely try that out.
So can I ask, is something like that, is a feature like that, is that something that actually gets born out of these conversations that you have where you're talking about, hey, you have this scenario where you do want to use Autopilot, but you do still need to co-manage this device, and here's how we're going to make it easier for you with a feature like this?
Yeah, so I won't steal any credit. This started a while back when my predecessor, Rob York, had this, and I think even before him. There's people in the early day, I don't know all the names, to give everybody credit, but I don't get all the credit for this. I just get credit for getting it out the door. But these I won't say all our features, but there are quite a bit of our features that are born just from conversation. One of the things I remember when I was a customer is that I never felt like I had a voice. I never felt like I could reach the right people to complain. And then when I did get somebody there one time a year, I felt like they didn't care because they had heard it a million times. I try to role reverse that, and I do a lot of community talking really just to make sure that that's not how other people feel as I am a PM for certain things. But that is a feature that was born out of straight conversation. We had MSIs where you can deploy the ConfigMgr agent to MSI, but then we quickly learned that the workloads cause what's called flip-flop. And if you don't know what flip-flop is, whenever you install SCCM agent, not through this process, so through MSI or through N32, the SCCM agent basically yanks all the workloads. And then at some point in time, talk through CMG and we give the workloads the right order. So we call that flip-flop, and customers have brought that to us. And bringing us an issue is one thing. Helping us understand sometimes can be challenging, but helping us understand the impact, whether it be operational or to your business, that's where things light up for us. So when we understood the impact was, some customers said, well, the workloads are gone, and then they came back an hour later or so, such and such. But why? Why did that matter? It's kind of like my kid asking me, why is the sky blue? Well, why did it pick blue? So it's like, well, got to ask those questions. So conversation like that came about, and the impact wound up being when you have a conditional access policy. So customer has a conditional access policy, they get in auto provision the device, SCCM agent gets installed, and then guess what? The workloads get yanked over by the ConfigMan agent, which then leaves the device non-compliant. And if you have a CA policy that says, hey, revoke access to, I don't know, email or something like that, or even a whole device, if it's not compliant, now that user's got impact, and kaboom, right? So now you've got a help desk blown up, and all they're doing is hitting the button for retry, waiting on policy to get to that device. So long story short, things happen when we actually have dialogue with customers. So any customers out there that want to have a voice, need to have a voice, so you can start with me. I don't own everything, but the things I own, I really do care about your experience. And a lot of PMs do. Like I said, sometimes it could be like pulling teeth, helping us understand. Once we understand, it can make progress. And this feature was literally born from conversations like that with customers. Here's the problem, here's the pain. And then, hey, we came out with Autopilot in the co-management. We announced it at 2019 Ignite. COVID happened, resources, blah, blah, blah. It took us a while to get it out the door, but finally got it out the door. And it's working pretty good. There's some other things customers have asked for with that. And again, I'm doing that exact same thing. Customers are asking for a few other capabilities with it. Well, why and how is it impacting your business? And once we really understand that, then I can actually have a different conversation. How, why, should, and value for building said things, iterative at least in that particular feature. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight.
Yeah, that's cool. I stumbled across two of your early adopters of this one, to tap customers vetting this process, and that was happy. That was good to see that finally came to light eventually. So
good. Hopefully you didn't run into any of those bugs, but we got them fixed.
Maybe.
We get it. That's why we have TAP, and we love our private preview customers, so we can actually vet it, fill it out before it actually goes out in the wild. So
that's where we have this, and this is, if you think of it, the whole MEM platform in the whole grand scheme of things is actually quite new, at least if you compare it with ConfigMgr. It's been around for almost 30 years, but it's getting better week by week, and it's good to see. Still ups and downs, and there always will be. Very few software in this world is totally bug free. No bug maybe, but
Well, it's way better than before, right? Where you had to wait, 6 months or 8 months for an update, and you're just kind of working around that problem forever, what felt like forever. So, there are certain parts of Intune that feel new very quickly because they iterate so fast. So it's the advantage of having the cloud service too. You don't have to deal with that pain or et cetera that's causing you a stone in your shoe for months or weeks at a time.
Fixes can be implemented fairly quickly. If there is something major happening, something can be implemented within a few days. It's good stuff. All right. Any other questions out there? We still have a whooping 25 minutes to go. We have Andrew, we have Danny here. Happy to answer any questions you might have. I'm going to sit down and enjoy coffee.
Is there? I'll ask a question. Is there something you guys have heard that people want, feel very strong about?
Nothing so far in the different chats. We are tracking chats on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. Twitter has a little their API around streaming. It doesn't allow to interact with a chat for it. Since it doesn't exist, it's kind of hard to interact with. null. But anyhow, we're here. We're happy to answer any questions.
Otherwise, we'll just default to talking about Star Wars.
That works.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with talking about Star Wars, right?
No, not at all.
It's either that or Lego. That's usually our go-to subject.
One of the other. One of the
Yep.
other, right?
Or Lego Star Wars. That also works. Yeah. There is a question regarding, more like a comment, really. Let's see. First, I hear that renaming the ConfigMgr install folder will be a new feature in the next release. You have always been able to, during the restore operation, specify a new installation directory, and that's been useful for customers that, out of either ignorance or just pure mistake, accidentally installed ConfigMgr into the C drive, and it was a fairly small volume. And they learned the hard way that there are inbox folders in ConfigMgr, and they can have a lot of files sometimes. Not the best idea to put that on the C drive. So you can do that as a backup restore operation. I haven't heard about an option in the tool itself to just rename it, but I know that the restore one has been around for a little bit. There was also a comment regarding more reporting and logging in Intune. And there have been indeed some recent reporting from the update side of things. Was something I saw show up like a month ago, maybe. One of the preview reports. Do you know any more about that, Andrew? Or Danny, for that matter?
Nope.
I'm just trying to recall. I know what you're talking about. I just don't recall the specifics. Let me see if I can.
And what was this again?
There's a new report available in Intune for updates.
Oh, I wish I had David here. Let me see. I guess we all got our tenants open now, looking like this.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
Let's see, monitor.
It's not too long ago.
Was it the device readiness report?
Could have been, yeah.
And the compatibility risks report? I think the feature update report and the expedited update report may have already been there.
All right. If you have a link I can share.
Yes.
While waiting for that link, regarding the login question, those changes have already been added. They were also added about a month ago. I think it was either 2204 or 2205 release of Intune. Let's see. I think this page we have shown like every other office hours since I don't know when, but one of the recent one was indeed logging. No diagnostics. That one's for expedited updates. That one was new, but there was another one where they increased the size. Yeah, this one here. So now you can collect much larger log file than before, and the collect time is down from almost 2 hours down to 15 minutes, which I think is, quite an improvement. So that was the changes that was done for the logging side. And I just got the link from Andrew here. Perfect. Thank you. I'll bring it up on the screen. I should actually show the screen probably. Here we go.
Yeah, it looks like I don't have, looks like these reports require specific licensing, so I'm not able to run them in this tenant.
Okay. I might not have them either. Let's see here. Yeah, I do. It looked like. No, I have not installed the prerequisites for it. So There was some additional configurations you had to do to get this running, but this is one of the new reports that become available. And of course, as usual, and this one is something we have showcased a lot of times as well, the community has been extremely strong in terms of providing great additional dashboards for example, updates and application reliability and whatnot. And these you can download as JSON files, import into your tenant, and then use as is. That they're using update compliance in the background. I've seen reports for biases, delivery optimization reports, good stuff in general. So I know that Microsoft did a heavy lifting between 2020 and 2021 to get the backend system fast enough to process all this data, because back then it could take a really long time just to generate the data to show it on a report. So they did that work, but the sort of front end side of things hasn't been published much of late. So it's nice to see that there are some work happening in that area. I know it's a very common request from customers to have additional reporting and even inventory and that kind of things in the Intune environment, because they are kind of used to have it. They're coming from maybe a ConfigMgr platform, always had that kind of stuff, and now they're moving into a modern platform, and they want more of that. I'm pretty sure I've heard that as well, Danny, that organizations are looking for more ways of visualizing the stuff they have in these platforms. All right, let's see. All right, I don't see any more questions coming in. We are here another 15 minutes, assuming there are questions coming in, but we're available this time at least. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send them in.
Time passes fast. Been here that long already?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's 5:14 here in outside Chicago.
Dang.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit salty. St. Louis.
Oh, no kidding. I'm coming down there in a couple of weeks. I've actually got my side project. I don't know if you're familiar with Side Project Brewery. They're out of St. Louis. Got my side project hat on today.
Yeah.
There you go. Small world.
Yep.
So while we're waiting for more questions, anything else, any exciting stuff you've been working on lately, Danny, that you can share without, getting fired over it?
Yeah, we don't want you to do that.
I mean, I'm trying not to go too far, but yeah, we're working on a few things. We're looking at a few things to, let's see how best to articulate this. Ease entry into Autopilot, ease entry into cloud provision devices. There's some features that I'm working on. It's not that I can't say it, it's too early to say anything yet. I'm still doing some investigation with private customers, just having conversation to try to figure out what's holding them up. One of the things, hypothesis I have, is that customers are having issues with provisioning, and it has a lot to do with applications, the application estate, where no matter where the application lives, forget where they live for a moment. Some customers need applications in sequence. Some customers need applications that are in a specific category in sequence. So I've been talking to some customers, just trying to understand, do they need that? How do they need it? How do they implement it? Why dependencies don't work? Things like that. A few other things, but that's kind of top of mind right now in the hot conversation. It's probably the hottest conversation right now. There's a few other small ones that'll be heating up pretty soon, but that's about it. That's the one I've probably had 3 times a day already.
That's cool. All right, we did have a question come in from Neil here regarding source location for subsection of applications. I'm assuming this is a ConfigMgr question. I haven't seen nothing in the UI for that being announced or upcoming features to do that change easily. But PowerShell has been available for a long time to do that change. Nikolai put together a nice little PowerShell GUI a while ago to allow you to pick a bunch of apps and basically change their source location. I'll be using that when migrating from older environment to newer environments. And those technologies still works beautifully. Let's see if I can find that script. Data sources, maybe. No, that was a prereq tool. Jump over to a different screen. Content source update tool. Here we go. It was somewhere here. So this is a nice little GUI that you can run your startup. Here's the download link, and allowing you to select a bunch of apps and update their location. And there's also an option to copy the data to a location. And this is useful if you have been using like file server 1, and now you're moving stuff over to file server 2, and you just want to get the stuff over and update the location for all those packages. So hopefully this tool can help. That's good stuff. Also got a comment or update on an earlier question regarding the Windows 11 block thing. Those registry keys that we shared from Stephen Kister solved the problem. So thank you for that update. Beautiful. Like that. Yeah, there was a follow-up comment that there's the scripting challenges when you have lots of applications where very deep source paths. Yeah, that can be interesting to work with for sure. Package is easy. Data source is just so easy to update applications since it's tied to the deployment type rather than the app itself. It requires a little bit more work, serializing all that content and finding the right path. But it's doable for sure. It's a bit of extra work. I can probably share that screen also, showing the tool here. That was the source tool I was referred to earlier from Nikolai. Probably learn to remember to actually share the screen I'm talking about. That will be helpful. All right. Any other questions? Great questions. Love it. It was funny. I remember one of the MVPs back in the days, Robert Marshall, lives in the UK. He started a very ambitious project of creating a tool that would track all the community tools that was released related to ConfigMgr back then. It quickly came up to way over 300. So he eventually gave up that project, but that's just an indication on how strong the community is in this area. So
yep,
good stuff for sure. All right. Any other questions?
Hopefully I didn't scare all your fans away.
Well, at least no horses escaped. We had that happening in one of our shows earlier. We were doing a live webinar, and one of our horses on the property got loose and came up to the patio looking in. It was like, I need to leave.
Just wanted a snack.
He looked at you, you looked at him, and I guess I got something to go do.
Yeah. You probably had a question in Intune, something. I don't know.
Most likely.
Think of it. They're out there grazing all day. They must be thinking of something.
I think there's a meme coming up.
All right. I don't see any other questions coming in at the moment. I know some of you that are joining us are watching from the European side of things, so it's way late there, and I have my hat off for joining us this hour. And other than that, Andrew, Danny, thank you so much for joining, for answering all these questions, and having a chat here on the office hours. Thank you so much, everyone. See you next week.
All right.
Thanks,
No
everybody.
problem. Later.